Hey!
Everyone! It's me and Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Shannon. Welcome to a new month.
It's a new month, and with a new month comes a new theme.
And this month, within our yearly theme of community, our monthly theme is recovery.
Recovery.
I say that my warm tea with a little sweater on.
That's a good feeling of recovery.
I feel like the most basic fall woman right now. A little cardigan, a tea, just like.
Listen, warmth is warmth. Warmth is warmth. I am excited isn't really the right word, but we did a good job from going from transition, right, which was last month, into recovery, because both words are transitional words. They're verbs, right? It's like you have to, in transition, you're going from one thing to another thing. You're moving from one thing to another thing. In recovery, it's the same thing, because we were discussing healing a little bit. We were like thinking about whether or not we wanted it to be recovery or healing. And still there's like a battle between those two words. But recovery isn't like I've recovered. There's always some movement in that word.
Yeah, it's not, it's a process. Yeah. And I think this is like if we're thinking about a timeline, it's like the tail end of the transition. I think this is like the hopeful, like we're getting to the end and we're like getting back to some sort of new baseline or new normal or something. And we're returning to some sort of normalcy. Also, I see Charlotte in the chat. Hi, Charlotte.
Good to Charlotte. I want to say thanks to Charlotte. She just became a Patreon member.
Thank you, Charlotte, for joining our Patreon. Do y'all know that we have a Patreon, and it is a very cool. We are in the middle of renovating it right now. For as little as $3 a month, you can support us and be part of our really cool community, where we're gonna post questions and shout out people like Charlotte for joining our Patreon. So head on over to patreon.com and look for Improv on and off the stage.
Do it. It's awesome. Yeah, the tail end. You said a thing, because I'm putting us on the stage. You said a thing. You said the new normal, returning to the new normal. So let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about on the stage improv, okay? When we are telling a story and we are moving through, especially when we're talking about narrative, we are moving through the hero's journey. Maybe you've heard of it, but the hero goes on a journey. Look up the hero's journey. You'll find all the steps. The thing that is important is the phrase or the story. We use this as well. We say, once upon a time and every day until one day, and because of that, and because of that, and because of that, right?
Yeah.
And the part that we're talking about with the recovery is the once upon a time and every day. That when you're talking about returning to a new normal, we go through and because of that, and because of that. And then at the very end, we're at the until one day, sure, and ever since then, the end. But it's not the end. What really happens is we come back to once upon a time and every day, right?
Yeah.
We're returning to that new normal. And to be quick about it, I'm going to just take, Lion King, right? We see Lion King. Simba goes through their journey, and then at the end of Lion King, spoiler, okay, turn it off here if you and
If you haven't seen the mid 1990s Disney animated classic, The Lion King,
then don't let me
don't
spoil it for
listen.
you. But Simba becomes king, right? Simba becomes king, and now we're at Once Upon a Time. Simba was king, and every day, where we were at Once Upon a Time, Mufasa was king, and every day, So this recovery process is that and every day, right? Because once upon a time, something may be tragic, but something happened to you. And every day it was like this until one day you had to recover. And now, once upon a time, every day it's like this. And there's a huge, and we talk about that. What I was getting at was, it is important for us to remember that that's where we're heading. We're trying to return to the new normal, even on stage within a narrative show.
Right. Yeah. Because first of all, we know that life goes on. But second of all, like, it can't just be chaos forever. Right. There's got to be some sort of stasis eventually. So, like, for that reason, you kind of have to, you can't just keep adding snowballing drama forever. You have to return to some level of normalcy before ending your scene or ending your, your long form narrative style or whatever you're doing.
Right. And I want to say this about that normal, right? Everyone's normal is completely different. And oh man, you ready to jump into some, like, my brain just went whoop.
Yeah.
It makes me think about sex work. It makes me
Ooh,
think
yeah.
about sex work. Yeah. So the idea that on the outside of that narrative, there's this, like, oh my gosh, sex work is label. But for a sex worker who is doing their job and enjoying their job, right? This is their normal. So what is the returning, when we're thinking about returning to a new normal or a balance? There is a balance for that narrative, and there's a balance for a person who is taking care of their child, cooking every day, going to school, who is not in sex work, is really what I'm saying. So we can't judge what the normal is for different people.
Right. And because we've gone through periods of transition, even that, like, normalcy for someone might not be the same throughout, right?
Yeah.
If you are if you're in sex work and then you have let's say, like, and then you get married and you have to, like, adjust your schedule, then you settle into a new routine, or you have a child and then you have to, like, settle into a new routine. If you're I think it's more about, like, the routine, your personal life, the things that happen every day, like we say on stage, and every day. That's kind of the patterns that we fall into. And yeah, it can be different for everyone, but then again, also, like, your normal isn't always going to be your normal.
That's true. And what I really love about this show, us talking every week, is that we repeat the same stuff. And what I'm going to repeat here is that when you're saying your normal isn't always going to be your normal, the flexibility that comes, we have to create and sustain an idea of flexibility, so that when our normal isn't our normal anymore, or rather when our normal becomes a new normal, right? That it's okay to have flexibility within the new lifestyle that you're choosing, or in the new lifestyle that you're in.
Yeah. Charlotte in the chat referred to it as the rhythm of life. So, like, which is great. I don't like a song that is one rhythm all the way through. I want those, like, boy band jams that, like, have that, like, slow down in the middle, that are like, hey girl,
yeah,
I like the way you put on those pants, or whatever. And, like, and that makes it interesting. And yeah, if if our lives were just like one consistent rhythm throughout, that would be boring. So we should have the openness and the flexibility for new rhythms and new routines. Yeah.
And when we're talking about recovery, right? Usually what's happening is something, is there something else we can use other than negative? Something that we didn't want. How about that? Something that we were opposed to was happening. And then now we are recovering from that. We are going through a transition. And in that transition, you were saying just now, like, I want to make sure I don't lose my train of thought. We have to have the flexibility. We're coming into recovery. Oh, it is difficult. There is an awareness that even though this new thing might be better or different than the thing that you were coming from, you're still going to look at the thing that you were coming from. Pieces of that is still going to follow you into this new normal. And it's okay. That flexibility isn't just about being flexible within the new normal or the new space. It's also about being flexible and kind to that old Shannon, right? And remembering, like, okay, yeah, this is an old habit, or I'm leaning on an old thing that I used to do, and I'm practicing. That's where I'm going. I'm practicing this new normal, and that's what improv helps us do, is that practice.
Right. Yeah. Because we have that flexibility of knowing that we can't, like, knowing what didn't work for us in the past too, which made us go through this transition.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If this is the transition that we chose. Right. Like when you start a new job, or you have like a new relationship, like how many of us have looked back on like our previous relationships and been like, "Ooh, that's so cringe." Like I can't believe that I think about my cringe moment that I think about is like when I got in a fight with my college boyfriend in the middle of the night and like screamed in, like, we lived in a house with like 7 other people, and I like screamed at like 2 in the morning at him. And I'm like, ugh, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And knowing that I can look at that person and be like, okay, I'm not always going to be like that. I can recover into transition and grow into this person that I am now, who I don't think I've ever yelled at my spouse. I know.
Not that way.
Not that way.
Right.
It helps that he's like the calmest man I've ever met in the whole wide world.
He's a nice person.
He's a nice
I like it. Yeah, there is what's interesting about what we learn for what we're talking about, this recovery period, this everyday, this new normal. What's interesting about what we learn on the stage is, in fact, the oddness, right? We come to embrace, right, that, okay, I'm a fairy, and every day I pick giant strawberries, right? And whatever happens to that fairy on their journey, at the end of that, now, oh great, now I am an ogre. I made a transition into whatever happened. I don't know what the story was, but now I'm an ogre and I break rocks. The idea of being a fairy, starting off as a fairy who collects strawberries and ending up as an ogre who breaks rocks, like, the actual words are strange. Like, right? Like, Shannon, what are you talking about being a fairy? What are you talking about being an ogre? Those are weird. They're weird things to think about. But when we take that example, when we take that idea off the stage, and man, what is the equivalent of being a fairy who picks strawberries? That's that thing's normal. So whatever it is, it can be anything, whoever you are right now. And then going into something or ending up as something that you just never thought that it was possible. Being a fairy connected to being an ogre who knows what happened in there? But now improv helps us to accept that new thing very quickly and move through what it's like to be an ogre. And I think that's really important. That feeling, that practice of acceptance uh, really is important in the practice. The same thing, the practice of acceptance in recovery. I'm accepting this new thing that I'm trying out, I'm moving through. Uh, it's a whole lifestyle, actually.
Yeah. And I think there's also, what you were saying about like fairy and the ogre being connected, right? And I think part of recovery um, is also saying that we haven't totally lost the thing before, right?
Hey, come
So
on.
like that's the other thing about like when we're storytelling through improvisation is that we aren't just like suddenly like, and now I'm an ogre and I'm a completely different person. But you're probably justifying it like, and now I'm an ogre, so I have a stronger resistance with my strawberry allergy when I pick them. And so like there's still a little bit of a through line from who you were to who you are now. And
Hmm.
so not only recognizing and accepting the changes, but accepting what part of you is important enough to carry through to the new you.
All right, here we go on this as well. Okay. The other part of that, the changes and the I love this carrying through you're talking about, and what helps us carry through, but our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the other part. This is the other part of being vulnerable. So when we are on stage and we are moving from the fairy to the ogre, we're not doing that by ourselves. It's not our story that we're doing that all alone. Other people are championing us into the transition of being this ogre, right? Other people are reading what it is that we're putting out. They are grounding our story. They are creating the rock mine for us for us to find, so that we can find ourselves, aha, and we can bloom into this ogre. And if we take that off stage, the vulnerability part that I was talking about is, in order to do that, we also have to leave clues. We have to be vocal about what transition it is that we are trying to make, so that people can surround us and help us move through or move to whatever it is that we're trying get closer to, whatever it is we're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And to like use them. And I think that that's important. This entire discussion about community is that we are not like an island, right? Like nothing happens in like a vacuum.
Mhm.
So you always need like your environmental support. Is your environment is going to affect your transition and your recovery, right? If you're in a community that is stunting your recovery, right, and is
Mhm.
keeping you in chaos, if you're yeah, let's like taking that back on the stage. If you're trying to like wrap up this dang story and just be like, I'm an orc now. I am an orc, but I still retain these qualities that I had before because I'm the same person. And your teammates are like, oh, but look, there's a little bit of fairy left. You have wings on the back, and they like keep on going. It's uh, similarly in life, who has those people in their life that are just like drama, 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 try to like change things and cause chaos all the time,
Mhm.
right? Um, that makes it difficult to find your new normal when there's chaos
Yes.
everywhere.
That makes me think of people who refuse to use new names. Like, you've chosen a name for yourself and people refuse to call you by that name. That's that little bit of chaos. That's that you still have fairy wings. I see your fairy wings. And you're like, I'm going to end this scene.
I just need this to be over.
Right? And the other thing that we learn in improv is really to shut that down pretty hard. If we can, we practice it, right? We practice the idea of like, what, you saw wings? Oh, you obviously need you don't have your glasses on. Pink, that's just dust, right? Just to say very clearly, these are my boundaries, and to practice different ways of setting your boundaries for yourself. Because, man, like Emily, when we are in the state of recovery, we are in such a vulnerable position, right? We went already through the everyday, and until one day we went through all of the story that it took us to get to a space where we can even say that we're in recovery. And what you're saying is, it is important to make sure that your community is doing nothing but supporting you, and then to say thank you, no thank you, to the people who still see your fairy wings, because we're not there any longer.
Right. That's not where we are. Charlotte, I see you saying your mom is the chaos agent in your life. I yeah, it's so hard when you're trying to like make I have a friend whose parent has difficulty accepting that they are non-binary and changing their name. Uh and I know that it's very difficult for them. It is great though, because the other part of their community, they have a child who, when the child interacts with their grandparent who doesn't get their parents' identity, that the kid will be like, I don't know who you're talking about, until the parent fixes it.
Right.
So like, you need those humans in your life that are like supporting you in your recovery, and who are like, yes, this is what your life is, and I will. It's helpful to have other humans that are like, I'm going to go to bat for you,
Mm-hmm.
against the chaos agents in your life, the people who are trying to like pull you back into the old stuff.
Yeah. The space that I am, that that feeling, not feeling, but that story of like, I don't know who you're talking about. I love that, because what's
It's
happening
so
is,
cute from like a
it's
6-year-old.
right. It's like, it's perfect. And it shows us the continuation of story, right? As
Mm-hmm.
far as that person literally being younger and teaching an older generation, and then coming up, and who will also be part of an older generation at one point. The piece that we don't get in improv or in movies or whatever it is that continuation, right? We
Mm-hmm.
see the journey, and we see the fairy go to ogre, and then usually what happens is, because we're out of time, like, all right, and then they were an ogre, great, lights down, credits roll on Mufasa, right? We don't get to experience what happens to the ogre. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it is important, I feel like, to remember that, one, when we build that type of community where we're telling younger generations, or we're telling anyone who can help tell other people, who can spread the word about your own recovery, that's important. And then to remember that, like you said at the very beginning of this, it is still a journey. You are still inside of a journey, even though it feels like you're at the end of a previous journey. You're at
Yeah.
the beginning of a new one.
Yeah. I think that's why sequels are so compelling, right? Sequels and not reboots, but like when shows come back, right? Like when they had Girl Meets World, I was so stoked to like see Corey Topanga's kid.
Yes.
Girl Meets World's my favorite as a kid. Or Fuller House, or any of those. I You inspired me to binge Steven Universe, and finally for the first time watch Steven Universe Future. So again, like 2 years in the future, it's compelling for us to see what happens to those protagonists after the fallout of their primary story,
Right.
because we know that life goes on beyond that,
Yeah.
regardless of how those sequels actually go.
I know, right?
Or although I don't know, when I was a kid, Lion King 2, Simba's Pride was like one of my favorites, I just gotta say, Kobu the
It's
Lion,
fine.
super hot.
It's fine. I think I saw that. I think I saw it. I don't remember it very well, but I'm pretty sure I saw it. Yeah,
Definitely
it's
like one of those straight to video Disney things that I was a kid and I was like, I love it so much. I was like old enough to like, I was old enough to realize that I had confusing feelings about that lion. So
right. Right. That's what I remember. I was
that lion's a bad boy and I like it.
like an interesting. What's up with this line? what are you What are you doing, little Simba? Yeah. There's. I'm thinking about other ways because there's so many, but I'm thinking about other ways that improv, the practice specifically of improv, helps us sit in that in recovery because when we are in recovery, usually we are still sitting in some pain. And other than narrative or playing games, I'm thinking about the community of improv, like doing games, doing improv with other people, and how they support, how it's possible to support someone else that is going through recovery.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of those, it's like one of those skills that we kind of inherently take off the stage as
Mm.
improvisers, right? That's part of the reason we started this company is because we were like, weird how these skills that we use on stage, we also use in life. And so I think that's one of the more basic ones that we as generally speaking as an improv community tend to do is be supportive of our other humans as they transition into new normal spaces, right? When I actually recently made the decision to step down from my position at my theater because I'm 3D printing a human child, and it just became, I just needed to remove one thing up from my plate, and the outpouring of support from my
Mm.
team while I transitioned into the new normal of not having anywhere to go on Tuesdays and Saturdays and
Right.
Thursdays, has been delightful because we are a group of people who inherently know that life needs to be flexible and that like we need to support each other through
Right.
things.
And I want to point out, I'm going to like dig a little bit deeper into that story, only a little. Even though as improvisers we are inherently prepared and taught and practice in supporting our fellow players, doesn't mean that you had any less heartache, right, about stepping down. Like there's still fear, and because I don't, you know, all the things that we get as improvisers. You're so brave. You could do anything. I could never do that. There isn't any lack of
We're
fear.
not. Yeah, I'm
Right?
convinced everyone hates me and thinks I abandoned them, but like despite like constant evidence to the contrary, right? Like
Right.
um so it's not without, it's not like, I think that's why it's important for us to first of all call this a practice, as in something that
Yes.
we do routinely,
Yeah.
and not just like a one and done sort of thing. Like, look, I understand support and I'm going to be confident forever. uh, Versus what we have to tell ourselves is when we have these intrusive thoughts, because we are human beings, that we're able to say, hey, let me think flexibly about that,
Yeah.
and look at the world around me. Yeah. And that's I could say more, but we're at 29 minutes.
We're 29. I'm gonna look what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this. Boom. Ha 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 ha. And isn't it great? Go check us out on Improv On and Off the Stage because we're doing so many things where we ourselves are in transition. We ourselves are in all of the stages that we're talking about every month. Like as far as recovery goes, I'm recovering right now from being alone, right? running a company by myself, and then suddenly having people around me to support. There is a transition that I'm recovering from, like taking everything by myself and instead opening up. And if you're watching this right now, you need to open up with us. Come with us.
Mhm.
Come and enjoy what it's like to go through all of these transitions and all of the themes that we're exploring with someone, with me, with Emily, with Luke, with Aaron, with all the
Yeah,
people.
we're recovering our Patreon page.
Yep.
And on the website, we're recovering the page that's going to list all of our classes, upcoming classes and workshops. So keep your eyeballs on all of those things because we're doing a lot of work to get back to our new normal of having a lot of accessible content for you all.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is so great. Obviously, we are here for you. So wherever you see us, we will always see you on and
Off the stage. Bye.
bye.